The air shifts, a subtle tension. You feel it prickle on the back of your neck. Something is off. Not overtly hostile, nothing you can point to directly. It's a feeling, an intuition, a sense that the ground beneath you isn't as solid as it seems when you're around them. They may be charming, kind, even deeply familiar, but there's a complexity lurking beneath the surface, a set of unseen forces that can pull you into their orbit in ways you don't understand, leaving you drained, confused, questioning yourself. Carl Jung understood these forces. He spent a lifetime mapping the hidden landscapes of the psyche, revealing how what remains unconscious within us can become our fate, and the fate of those around us. This is not about villains and heroes, it's about the intricate, often challenging dance between your inner world and theirs. It's about recognizing the signs, not to label or condemn, but to understand, to protect your own psychic space, and to cultivate healthier ways of being in the world. Get ready to see the people around you, and perhaps even yourself, with new eyes. The unconscious projector. They don't mean to hurt you, not consciously anyway, but their unacknowledged pain, their denied flaws, their unbearable truths find a home in you. It's an unconscious eviction notice from their own psyche, and suddenly you're holding the leash on their emotional baggage. You walk away from conversations with them feeling heavy, burdened by emotions that aren't yours. They express anger, but somehow you feel like you're the one who did something wrong. They feel inadequate, and suddenly you're questioning your own abilities. This is the core of the unconscious projector. They are blind to what lies within themselves, the fear, the insecurity, the unmet needs, and that blindness forces their inner world outwards, onto you. Jung called this projection a fundamental mechanism of the psyche. It's how we deal with aspects of ourselves that we find unacceptable or too difficult to confront. Instead of acknowledging, "I feel jealous," the unconscious projector thinks, "They're trying to make me jealous." Instead of, "I feel inadequate," it's, "They think I'm not good enough." The danger here isn't malicious intent, it's the sheer psychological weight of carrying someone else's unintegrated shadow. It's like being a walking, talking screen onto which their internal movie is constantly being played. And the longer you stay in this dynamic, the more you start to believe you are the character they've assigned you. You become the villain, the savior, the unsupportive friend, the demanding partner, whatever role helps them avoid the discomfort of self-awareness. Think of the friend who constantly complains about how everyone takes advantage of them, subtly implying that you too are not doing enough. Or the family member who sees criticism in every suggestion, projecting their own fear of not being good enough. You find yourself tiptoeing around them, measuring your words, constantly trying to prove their projections wrong. But you can't. Because the issue isn't you, it's the internal landscape they refuse to tend. Recognizing this pattern requires a strong sense of your own emotional boundaries. Learn to ask yourself, is this feeling truly mine? Or am I picking up on something that belongs to the other person? It's like developing an internal filter. You can listen with empathy, offer support where appropriate, but you don't have to absorb their emotional projections like a sponge. You can offer a mirror, gently reflecting back what you observe in their behavior, but you cannot force them to look into it. Setting boundaries is crucial. This might mean limiting the amount of time you spend with them, changing the subject when the projection begins, or simply disengaging from conversations that leave you feeling burdened. It's not about abandoning them. It's about protecting your own psychic integrity. You can't heal what they refuse to see, and you can't live a life burdened by their unseen selves. The bearer of the persona. We all wear masks. We have our work mask, our family mask, our social mask. These are our personas, the faces we present to the world to navigate social situations and fulfill different roles. And according to Jung, this is perfectly normal, even necessary. The persona is our adaptive layer, allowing us to function in society. But the danger arises when the mask hardens, when the wearer becomes so identified with their persona that they lose touch with the living, breathing, complex individual beneath. This is the bearer of the persona. They are defined by their role, their status, their image. Authenticity is sacrificed on the altar of appearance. Interacting with a bearer of the persona can feel strangely hollow. The conversations are cordial, perhaps even impressive on the surface, but there's a lack of genuine connection. Everything feels curated, controlled. They speak in platitudes, offer predictable responses, and avoid vulnerability like the plague. Their emotions, when they show them, feel performative, like a carefully rehearsed scene. The danger here is the contagion of superficiality. Living or working closely with a bearer of the persona can subtly pressure you to adopt a similar facade. You might find yourself mirroring their behavior, censoring your own spontaneous reactions, and prioritizing how you appear for how you genuinely feel. You start to believe that only certain parts of you are acceptable, the parts that fit within the narrow confines of the approved persona. Your own vibrant, messy, authentic self begins to wither in the shadows. Consider the colleague who is always impeccably put together, always says and does the right thing, but gossips viciously behind closed doors, or the family member who maintains a perfect facade of harmony while sweeping uncomfortable truths under the rug. They project an expectation of perfection onto you, and any deviation from that ideal is met with subtle disapproval or withdrawal. Your authenticity becomes a threat to their carefully constructed world. Recognizing this pattern involves looking beyond the polished surface. Pay attention to inconsistencies between their words and their actions, subtle signs of emotional detachment, and a rigid adherence to social norms even when they feel unnatural. Protecting yourself involves staying grounded in your own values and feelings. Dons let their need to perform dictate your own behavior. Continue to express yourself authentically, even if it makes them uncomfortable. It's a quiet act of rebellion, a refusal to wear a mask that doesn't belong to you. Build relationships with people who value your genuine self, imperfections and all. The more you surround yourself with authenticity, the less appealing the polished emptiness of the persona becomes. The owner of the repressed shadow. We all have a shadow. It's the rejected parts of ourselves, the impulses, desires, and emotions that we deem unacceptable and push into the unconscious. And just like a physical shadow follows us, our psychological shadow is always present. The danger isn't having a shadow, it's denying its existence. This is the owner of the repressed shadow. They strive for an idealized image of themselves, one that is pure, controlled, and morally upright. But the more fiercely they deny their darkness, the more potent and unpredictable it becomes. Interacting with the owner of the repressed shadow is like walking through a minefield. They may appear calm, rational, even virtuous on the surface. But there's an underlying tension, a palpable rigidity. They're easily triggered by the very traits they disown in themselves: anger, greed, sexuality, vulnerability. And when their shadow is poked, it doesn't emerge as a subtle projection. It erupts in a disproportionate, often ferocious reaction. The danger here lies in the explosive and unpredictable nature of their repressed content. Since they refuse to consciously process their shadow, it operates autonomously, hijacking their behavior in moments of stress or perceived threat. They might have sudden outbursts of rage that seem to come out of nowhere, engage in passive-aggressive behavior that leaves you feeling confused and resentful, or become intensely critical of others for minor perceived flaws, mirroring their own self-condemnation. Think of the person who preaches about forgiveness but holds grudges for years, poisoning relationships with unresolved resentment. Or the one who is outwardly modest and humble but seethes with envy at the success of others. Their unacknowledged shadow leaks out in subtle sabotage, biting remarks disguised as jokes, and a constant undercurrent of negativity. You never know when their repressed darkness will lash out, making genuine connection and trust impossible. Recognizing this pattern involves paying attention to the intensity and appropriateness of their emotional reactions. Do they overreact to minor issues? Is there a disconnect between their stated values and their actual behavior? Do they seem overly critical of others, especially regarding traits they themselves might possess? Protecting yourself requires recognizing that their outbursts are not about you personally. They are manifestations of their internal struggle. Do not engage with the shadow directly. When they are in the grip of their unintegrated darkness, rational conversation is often impossible. Step back, create space, and disengage from the emotional storm. You cannot integrate their shadow for them. It is their work to do. Encourage professional help if appropriate and possible, but prioritize your own safety and well-being. The moral control of morality can be a guiding light, a framework for ethical behavior and healthy community. But when morality becomes a weapon, a tool for judgment and control, it becomes a dangerous force. This is the moral controller. They are the self-appointed guardians of virtue, convinced that they know what is right and wrong, not just for themselves but for everyone around them. Their sense of superiority is often a defense against their own unexamined shadow, projecting their disowned flaws onto others and condemning them with righteous indignation. Interacting with a moral controller feels like being under constant surveillance. Every action, every word is weighed and judged against their rigid moral code. There's a pervasive sense of guilt and shame in their presence, as if you're constantly falling short of an impossible standard. They offer unsolicited advice, veiled criticisms disguised as concern, and share judgmental anecdotes about others, subtly reinforcing their own perceived righteousness. The danger here lies in the insidious nature of their control. It's not overt manipulation, it's a constant pressure to conform, to adhere to their narrow definition of what is acceptable. They create an atmosphere of fear and self-censorship, where expressing your true thoughts or feelings feels risky. You begin to internalize their judgments, questioning your own intuition and moral compass. Your spontaneity is stifled, and you start to live by their rules, even when they contradict your own values. Think of the family member who constantly comments on your life choices, framing their disapproval as being concerned for your soul, or the colleague who polices the language and behavior of others in the workplace, creating a tense and judgmental atmosphere. Their need to control the morality of others stems from their inability to integrate their own impulses and desires. By focusing on the perceived sins of others, they avoid confronting their own. Recognizing this pattern involves paying attention to unsolicited judgments, rigid thinking, and a pervasive sense of moral superiority. Do they frequently criticize others? Do they have a black and white view of the world with no room for nuance? Do they use guilt or shame to influence your behavior? Protecting yourself requires recognizing that their judgments are a reflection of their internal landscape, not an objective truth about you. Do not engage in debates about morality with them. You cannot win when their position is a defense mechanism. Set clear boundaries around conversations that delve into judgmental territory. Affirm your own values and live by them, regardless of their disapproval. Their moral code is their prison. Don't let them lock you inside with them. The complexed individual. Our experiences, especially early in life, can leave emotional imprints. These imprints, when unresolved and charged with emotion, can form complexes, autonomous nuclei of memory and affect that reside in the unconscious. For the complexed individual, these complexes are not simply historical echoes. They are active forces that can take over, hijacking their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the present moment. They are like emotional puppets, pulled and controlled by unseen strings connected to past wounds. Interacting with a complexed individual can be deeply disorienting. Their reactions often seem out of proportion to the situation at hand. A minor comment can trigger intense rage. A simple misunderstanding can lead to days of sullen withdrawal. A gesture of kindness can be met with suspicion. There are moments of genuine connection, followed by sudden, inexplicable shifts in mood and behavior. This inconsistency creates a sense of walking on eggshells, never knowing which version of them you will encounter. The danger here lies in the unpredictability and intensity of their complex-driven reactions. Since they are not consciously in control, their behavior can be erratic and emotionally volatile. They may project their unresolved traumas onto you, casting you in the role of a past abuser or a source of their pain. They may interpret your actions through the distorted lens of their complex, seeing rejection where there is none, feeling attacked when you are offering support. Think of the person with an abandonment complex who becomes intensely jealous and possessive at the slightest hint of your independence, or the one with a superiority complex who constantly needs to belittle others to feel good about themselves. Their complexes are like open wounds that are easily agitated, and their reactions are an attempt to manage the overwhelming emotions associated with those wounds. You can become collateral damage in their internal battles. Recognizing this pattern involves observing inconsistent and disproportionate emotional reactions. Do their moods shift dramatically without apparent cause? Do they overreact to minor issues? Do they seem stuck in patterns of behavior that don't serve them? Protecting yourself requires understanding that their reactions are not personal attacks, but manifestations of their complexes. Do not try to rationalize with them when they are in the grip of a complex. Logic is often unhelpful in the face of overwhelming emotion. Create emotional distance when their complexes are activated. You cannot heal their past wounds. That is their healing journey. Encourage them to seek professional help to address their complexes, but do so from a place of detached concern, not personal responsibility. Your role is not to be their therapist or their punching bag. The psychic vampire. Not all forms of psychological harm are loud and dramatic. Some are quiet, insidious, and deeply draining. This is the realm of the psychic vampire. They don't necessarily intend to harm you, but their unmet emotional needs, their chronic sense of depletion, and their inability to regulate their own energy lead them to unconsciously feed on yours. It's a symbiotic relationship gone wrong, where one person's neediness becomes the other's burden. Interacting with a psychic vampire leaves you feeling utterly exhausted. They demand your constant attention, your endless validation, your unwavering support. They have a knack for turning every conversation back to themselves, their problems, their dramas. They may be chronically in crisis, requiring rescue after rescue, or perpetually negative, casting a pall over every interaction. Their neediness feels like a bottomless pit, and no matter how much you give, it's never enough. The danger here lies in the gradual erosion of your own energy and sense of self. You become so preoccupied with meeting their needs, managing their emotions, and propping them up that you neglect your own well-being. Your boundaries dissolve, and you find yourself making excuses for their behaviour, sacrificing your own plans and priorities to cater to theirs. You start to believe that your worth is tied to your ability to fix or save them, entering into a codependent dynamic that is detrimental to both of you. Think of the friend who calls you every day with new crisis, draining your energy with long, circular conversations that never lead to solutions. Or the family member who thrives on drama and negativity, leaving you feeling emotionally depleted after every interaction. They may not be consciously malicious, but their inability to take responsibility for their own emotional state makes them a drain on those around them. Recognizing this pattern involves paying attention to how you feel after interacting with them. Do you feel tired, irritable, or emotionally drained? Do conversations with them revolve primarily around their problems? Do they resist taking responsibility for their own challenges? Protecting yourself requires establishing firm boundaries around your time and energy. It's okay to limit how often you interact with them, to set time limits on conversations, and to say no to requests that feel draining or inappropriate. You can offer support, but you're not obligated to be their sole source of emotional sustenance. Encourage them to seek professional help to address their underlying issues, but do so while maintaining your own emotional distance. Learning to protect your energy is not selfish. It is essential for your own physical and psychological health. These 6 patterns, viewed through a Jungian lens, offer a framework for understanding the complex and often challenging dynamics that arise in human relationships. They remind us that beneath the surface of conscious interaction lie powerful, unseen forces that can shape our experiences and influence our connections with others. Recognizing these patterns, both in others and within ourselves, is the first step towards navigating them consciously and cultivating healthier, more fulfilling relationships. It is a journey of self-awareness, courage, and the ongoing commitment to integrating our own shadow, refining our persona, and becoming more whole individuals. The path may not always be easy, but it is the path towards greater freedom and authenticity. The thread of the unconscious weaves through all our connections, a hidden current shaping the landscape of our relationships. We've journeyed through 6 patterns, 6 ways the unintegrated aspects of the psyche can create challenges, friction, and even pain in our interactions. The unconscious projector mirrors their internal world onto you. The bearer of the persona hides behind a polished facade. The owner of the repressed shadow carries a storm within. The moral controller judges to avoid being judged. The complexed individual is pulled by the echoes of the past, and the psychic vampire drains your vital energy. This isn't about labeling people and casting them out. It's about seeing with greater clarity. It's about understanding the unseen forces at play, the dynamics that can shape our emotional lives in profound and often confusing ways. Jung's work is a powerful lantern, illuminating the hidden corners of the psyche, urging us to look beyond the surface and understand what truly motivates behaviour, both in ourselves and in others. Think about your own life, your own relationships. Who comes to mind when you consider these patterns? Have you encountered the unconscious projector, leaving you burdened by emotions that aren't yours? Do you know someone who hides behind a persona, making authentic connection feel impossible? Have you witnessed the explosive force of a repressed shadow? Have you felt the sting of the moral controller's judgment? Have you been caught in the unpredictable storm of a complexed individual? Or felt your energy draining away around a psychic vampire? And here's the more challenging question, the one that requires true courage. Where do you see these patterns within yourself? Where do you unknowingly project onto others? In what situations do you hide behind a persona? What parts of your shadow remain unacknowledged and untamed? Do you sometimes use judgment to protect yourself? Are there old wounds, unresolved complexes that still dictate your reactions? Do you at times lean too heavily on the energy of others? This recognition is not a source of shame, but a gateway to liberation. By acknowledging these patterns in ourselves, we gain the power to change them. By understanding them in others, we gain the power to navigate those relationships with greater awareness and protect our own psychic space. The journey towards wholeness, towards individuation, is a continuous process of integrating these disowned and unconscious aspects of ourselves. It requires honesty, self-compassion, and a willingness to do the difficult inner work. It requires setting boundaries, not as acts of aggression, but as acts of self-preservation and respect. This script is a starting point, an introduction to powerful ideas that can transform how you see yourself and the world around you. It's an invitation to delve deeper, to explore the rich, complex landscape of the human psyche. What resonated most with you in this script? Which of these patterns feels most relevant to your own experiences? What steps can you take this week to bring more awareness to these dynamics in your own life? Share your thoughts and reflections. The conversation, like the journey of self-discovery, is ongoing. Consider exploring more of Jung's work and its practical applications in everyday life. Look for resources on setting healthy boundaries and understanding relationship dynamics. The more light you shine on the unconscious, the less power it holds over you.